This was the first year I actually really got into reading, and it was a big deal for me. It was also the year I read the most amount of books I've ever read in a year, and I read the grand total of 11 books. I know very well that this isn't by any means a lot of books, but it is for me. And in this video, I would like to briefly discuss each book and why you should or should not read it. The first book I read this year was The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And I read this book because it got recommended by Ali Abdal, if I'm correct. Anyway, I gave it 4 stars. The reason being, it really was a nice book. It was the first book of the year, so of course I had to choose something I was actually interested in. And something I do at the end of each book is I write something about the book. There are some occasions I forget to do this, but most of the time I do it. And for this book, this is what I wrote. Currently I'm writing this from my bed in Denmark. I read a great part of this book already while I was in Finland, and also while I was waiting at the airport in Helsinki. For me, the book showed that everything is there for a reason. And the book really did give me some comfort at various times. I felt alone these past couple of weeks. Helsinki, the train to Odense, living in Denmark in general, it was a nice comfort to have with me. The next book I read was Nothing Ventured by Jeffrey Archer. And I think this was actually one of the most surprising books I've read this year. The only reason I actually bought it was because it's really small compared to other books I have. So it was just unique in that way. Also, I was waiting at the airport and basically just killing time when I saw this book, and I just had to buy it. The book is basically about a detective retrieving paintings, and he does this with one of the biggest criminals in the painting scene. And throughout the book you see his journey, how he retrieves or sometimes does not retrieve the paintings, and I think it's written amazingly, which is also why I gave it 5 stars, as sometimes things happen that I would just not think about, which I think makes a book great. Will by Will Smith and Mark Mason. In terms of the value you can get in a book, this was definitely one of the favorite books I've read this year. It's just amazing how he became what he is today. While his dad wasn't the nicest person, the times Will talks about his dad were definitely my favorite moments. There are so many little lessons for life that he teaches you in this book that it's really something I think everyone should read. And also why I gave it 5 stars. Normal People, 5 stars. I don't really have much to say about this book, also since I read it really fast, for what you could call fast. I felt very weird after reading this book. There are some things that happen that are just interesting, but I do really understand why so many people are fond of this book, because it is really an amazing story and you should give it a try. The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. This series of book became one of my favorite series that I've ever read. I'm also reading the 3rd part now, The 3 Sisters, and it just really shows the miserable life people led during the time of the Nazis. I think it's good that these books exist, because it's almost unimaginable how these people used to live and the things they went through, and it's something that shouldn't be forgotten. And also in this book there are some great life lessons as well. All in all, maybe one of the favorite series I've read, definitely one of my favorite books of the year. Lonely Castle on the Mirror. I'm really bad at reading big books. This book is big for me, but I read it while on vacation and it was so easy to read. There are some books like, for example, The Hobbit, The Game of Thrones, which are amazing series, but I just can't get through them by reading because there are too many difficult words. But I think this book displayed a great story, while it was pretty extensive in my opinion, but still was a breeze to read, so definite recommendation, 5 out of 5. To this day I'm still pretty confused about this whole book. I got it for free when I bought another book. I've heard great things about this series, but I just don't understand it. Could be that it's just a small part of it, but the story was so, nothing was happening till the end, and then it just stopped. I'm probably gonna make a lot of people angry with this, but 2 out of 5. This is the 2nd book of Heather Morris about the Auschwitz series. This time talking about Silka, one of the friends of Lil in the 1st book. While this book focuses a bit more on the process after Auschwitz. A lot of people actually did get free. Silka was one of the ones who actually got used by the Nazis. But because of that, they thought they were working together with Silka. So she went to prison again for multiple years. This book definitely showed me why Heather Morris is one of my favorite writers, and also how amazing this series is. 5 out of 5 again. The Cat Who Saved Books. This was a quick fun series for me. Got nothing more to say about it. If you want something to read in your spare time, I think you should give it a try, but it's nothing special. But I did give it 4 stars. Maybe now that I look back at it, it should have been 3, but it was a pretty funny book and an interesting take on, yeah, cats. Although I should add that the book is not really about cats, but more a cat helping someone to save books. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. The Tale of Desperate. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, but again, a fun book. It's about a little mouse basically trying to save his own life. He's a bit of an outcast because of his giant ears, and it's a pretty fun little story. If you're into fiction, this is something for you. I'd wanted to read this book for many years. I think it was one of the first books I even wanted to read before I was interested in reading Norwegian Wood by Murakami, and it definitely did not disappoint. I think Murakami has an interesting style of writing that you need to like. Also because of course it's translated from Japanese to English, but also since his characters are just doing some weird shit. Also looking at what I've written, it was my first book of Murakami. It was cool. I'm still thinking about what message the book was meant to convey, but I think for me the main takeaway is Murakami's perspective about death. Right, the opposite of living, that is part of it. And I think that perfectly summarizes what this book's about. And yeah, he did a great job at that. Those were all the books I read this year. Hopefully next year will be a bit more than roughly one a month, but can't promise anything. I'm Custard Freeze. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.